I'm Steven.
And this is the Post P Chronicles. So, Steven, what do we have going on today?
We got a very special guest. As you know, we want to get more women on the show with powerful stories and testimonies. We got the amazing Vanessa Rojas.
Hello.
Welcome, Vanessa.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. So, like we ask all our guests, tell us your story. Where are you from?
I'm from Vista, California, born and raised, and 55 years old. 55. No, I take that back. I am not 55 yet.
Edit that part out.
I'm 51. I don't know why I said that. I'm 51. My story started at a very young age. I experienced childhood trauma, which led me down a very destructive path.
At what point did this destructive path begin?
It began, I was in elementary school, so I started just rebelling right away, stealing cigarettes, beer, smoking weed, and that led to other drugs. So by 11 years old, I was already on meth. 11.
Wow.
Already on meth. By the age of 13, I was doing heroin. I was sent, my parents did everything to try and help me, and nothing worked.
So your parents were there. So what was it that made you, if you don't mind, like what was it that made you lash out so much that caused all this childhood trauma?
Gosh, I think because it just distorted my whole view of the world. Right. The fact that my innocence was taken from me, it was like I didn't even know how to express what was happening to me. And I wrote my story, short version of it, in a book that Coast College published, which is called From the Seats to the Streets. And the best way to describe everything was, I think, from a very young age, I knew something was missing in my life, and that's because my innocence was taken. Right. So it's like I lost my identity from a very young age. So it was like, for the longest time, I was just searching for that part of me that was lost.
And trying to fill it with drugs and other substances that maybe could numb the pain or fill the void temporarily. Let me ask you a question. So you said your parents did everything they could to help you. Mm-hmm. Was there a mistrust, or you never felt safe enough with your parents because of maybe what happened in the future, so you never fully let them try to help you? Or was it just you were a lost cause trying to fill a void because your innocence was already taken, so no matter what anybody did, you were still going down that path? No,
it was more like I felt dirty. I felt dirty.
Shame.
I felt shame. I felt guilt. I didn't know, in my household, my parents, well, especially my mom, she's very, very old-fashioned, and these kinds of things weren't really talked about in my home. And with my dad, I didn't want to tell him because the person that inflicted this was somebody he respected, and I didn't want to take that from him. So it was a burden I kind of carried my whole life.
And it just kind of manifested inside.
Oh my goodness, yes. Got worse. I was angry. So I think in a way I was projecting that onto everything, in every area.
So I got a quick question. Someone, a young girl, young boy, going through what you went through, right? What did you need to hear? What did you need to see at that time that maybe parents, like you said, your parents are there, they tried, but they couldn't reach you in a way that you needed to be reached? So doing all the work that you've done over the years, what can a parent say or do for their child that may be going through the same thing, that can't reach out and say, help?
I think maybe what I needed to hear at that time was that it wasn't my fault. That kids are so vulnerable because they don't understand, like, the reality of things sometimes. And in a way they do, in a way they don't. But for me, predators like that are really good at crafting ways to make you think that, that this is normal, and and that probably, like, for me, I think it's like I would have needed to hear that it's okay to talk about it, that it's wrong,
Right.
and it's not my fault. That there wasn't something wrong with me.
Yeah, and kids have this punishment reward system where it's like something bad must have happened to me because I'm bad. Mom and dad got divorced because I've been a bad kid. And you're right, because at that age the world seemingly revolves around you. So your actions, sometimes you think, are responsible for what happens to you.
Right.
Yeah. So, well, on the other end of the coin, if there is a kid or a young adult or teenager right now listening that did go through this and haven't told anybody, what would you encourage them to do?
I would encourage them to take power over it, the situation, and speak out about it, because if you don't speak out about it, it can continue and it can happen to somebody else. And that is something I didn't think about when I was younger.
Right.
That if I would have spoke out about it, it could have saved other people pain, and I carry that guilt too, because I know others that have experienced it, and I could have spoke out about it, but I didn't. And it was more like I was protecting everybody from the truth. And it's the truth. If I would have, it's just, man, if I would have said something, and it's so true. When you speak truth, it sets you free.
Right.
So I could have experienced freedom a long time ago, because I ended up being a prisoner in my own mind, my own behaviors, my own addictions. It wasn't just about incarceration. I was in prison. I was in a mental prison. I was in an emotional prison, in every area of my life.
Definitely. So, you said you started to do heroin, you started to do meth, you started to act out, your parents tried. So, how did it progress?
What made it worse was the cycle of domestic violence that I was in. And for somebody who already has low self-worth and who's already beaten themselves down, and you have another person beating you down daily, it just kind of crushes your spirit. So what really, really made it worse was I gave birth to my youngest daughter, and she was special needs, and I didn't know how to cope with that. So that's when...
What age is this?
So at this point, I was about 25, 26.
And you were already had a history of getting in domestic violence relationships? And
It was the same person.
No, off and on with the same person.
Off and on with the same, off and on with the same person. And I'm not even going to defend that, but I do know, I will say this, I provoked a lot of it. And I own my part in it, and I think that was my way of controlling what was happening to me. Was like, if this is going to happen, it's going to be on my terms. So I kind of provoked a lot of it, but I definitely didn't deserve it,
Not at all.
So what basically escalated was, my daughter was born, and she required full-time care. It was a lot, and just dealing with that, I didn't know how to cope. So I was just, ingesting more drugs,
So
and
this is 25 years old?
20. You know what? I might be wrong about that. Wait, I'm thinking 25 or 26. I'm not
Right
good
on
with
there.
her.
'Cause
Around,
you
yeah,
say
right.
Your daughter's 25 now, right?
She's 25 now.
You're
Yeah.
51, so 25, 26.
About
Was
there.
there any times in your young adult life where you get clean, go back, get clean, go back, or this event in your mid-20s just led to you abusing it harder because you had a child with special needs?
I did periodically would get clean, not for very long, little off and on here and there. But the whole thing with my daughter just kind of, and it's really dumb that I feel really just even thinking about it now. Why didn't I reach out for help then? If I didn't know how to cope, I don't know. I guess I didn't know how to ask for help. So what really was a moment when things just got way worse was when my dad had a massive heart attack at work on his tractor at work at the age of 55. Everything changed from that point, because that was something that, and he passed away.
Sorry to hear that.
So that was unexpected, and so all of a sudden, and my dad was the father of my kids, basically. He raised them, and the father figure, and so everything just went downhill from that point, literally downhill. I got arrested, and then just repeatedly after that. Once I was in the system, there was no way getting out of it, because at this point, now I'm on supervision, and I can't stay clean. So I do have like, my criminal record history is pretty long, but the majority of my arrests are for testing dirty,
Yeah,
and
violating parole.
yes,
testing dirty.
yes. So that I just didn't know how to get clean, and
Were they? I mean, obviously you have parole officers, and you're testing dirty. Was the parole officers offering you help? Or were they just like, nope, you're going back?
You know what?
That's right. That should be.
Same
I mean, let's
thing.
think about it. That should be their job. Hey, this person is out. They did their time and they're struggling. I need to get them help. You would think that'd be a natural response of a parole officer. Is that what happened in your case?
Okay, so what happened in my case, I do have to clarify that I was not on parole. I was on county probation.
Okay, probation.
Which is
Sorry.
more
County
restrictive.
is more restrictive. I did have supportive probation officers who tried to help me all along, would give me chance after chance after chance. And I would test dirty. I remember one time I had like 12 dirties, and my probation officer, she's like, you have to come to court today. Like, I don't know what to do with you. We're trying to help you. You need to come to court today. So I naively go to court, and I'm in court, and the judge is saying, he's just looking at, my file, and he's just shaking his head, and he's like sighing, like he doesn't know what to do, and he's like, Mrs. Rojas, he's like, I've never seen a toxicology report this alarming. He's like, I can't believe you're even alive right now. And he said, in order to save your life, I have to put you in jail. Like, I'm trying to save your life. You don't understand. Like, and that happened several times where the judge is like, I'm trying to save your life. Like, clearly you can't get this on your own. We have to intervene. And I didn't understand it back then. Of course I was mad. And in jail the whole time, I'm like, I can't wait to get out to get high. I cannot
you were
wait.
cleaning up in jail. You were just
No,
waiting for your, watching the clock.
Yes. And it was a cycle. Because as soon as I was released, it
Gonna
was.
go get a fix.
Yep.
So let me ask you this. What was your bottom? Because I've been to AA, I go to meetings, or I've been to meetings and things like that, and everyone has their own bottom, right? That point where you can't go anywhere but up. What was your bottom?
I love that. I use that a lot. When you hit rock bottom, there's only one direction you can
Only
go.
one direction.
There's only one direction. My rock bottom was federal prison. And I got indicted in 2017, and I was sent to FCI, Tallahassee, Florida. So not only was I going to federal prison, I was going to federal prison on the other side of the country.
Kids over here, mom over here, support system over here, and you're all the way in Florida.
Right. And they were all sick. So my absolute rock bottom was during my bid. My mother was on her deathbed. My son had a cancerous tumor in his lung. My oldest daughter had Graves' disease. Well, she still has it. And so then there's my youngest who needs like full-time care. So I had like literally no hope. Like I didn't even believe God existed.
Right.
So there was a series of events that happened before that where women were like coming, like God was sending people to me, and to encourage me, and I had to get on my knees,
Right.
and cry out to him, because at this point, like, I didn't even think he existed. How is this even happening? Like, if you're real, you have the power to stop it. You can release me right now if you want to. And I just needed to know he was there. And that's when I had like had an encounter with God. And when I realized that he was real, my whole life changed from one day to the next. And it was apparent to everybody.
Well, tell us about that.
Yeah, let's hear about that.
Tell us about
Okay.
that.
So there was a lot of corruption in that institution, and we just didn't even really know how to, I guess, fight it in a way. So a lot of people were kind of scared of the staff. And I just had this boldness the very next day because I knew God existed. So I wasn't afraid of anybody. I wasn't afraid of men. Like, God's real. Like, you're just a man. Like,
Right.
You don't even know what you're doing. Who is going to take care of me is God. So I just started, I don't know, it's weird. It's like I had this awakening, and I just started understanding things. Everything made sense. Like, from that night to the very next day, just everything made sense to me. I just had a passion to learn about law, which I started doing in there. a lot of women started coming to me for help, which that to me was like another turning point, was when I just stepped out of my own problem, you know, and started helping others. That just helped me heal, you know.
Like you all of a sudden had a purpose.
Yes, exactly.
Let me ask you this real quick. All right, from one day to another, your personality changes. How's your addiction? Did that go away too?
Oh gosh, I got delivered from that.
Really?
And not only that, I got off all my psychotropic medications because part of my history involves schizophrenia, bipolar. I mean, everything you can think of. I struggled with it. My mother recovered the very next day. Like
Wow.
my mom recovered.
How could you not believe?
Yeah, that's not a coincidence,
It's
right?
not
None
a
of that's
coincidence. It's not a coincidence. So many things happened. I wrote a letter to a bipartisan nonprofit organization called FAM, Families Against Mandatory Minimums, explaining my situation, because I knew I was a candidate for compassionate release. And that got passed through the First Step Act, that you can petition a judge for it. So they found me an attorney to represent me pro bono, and working with her, like, I just already had a passion for law, so I helped build my case from prison.
So let's talk about that. Those who don't know about compassionate release and what you're in for, what made you a candidate for compassionate release, and what is it?
Basically, it's a reduction in your sentence, and you have to have like extraordinary and compelling reasons. And mine was my family exigency. So like I was needed at home.
Your daughter,
My
other daughter,
all
your
of
mother,
them.
yes.
I was
Son,
needed at home.
son.
Everybody.
Right, and people get out for medical reasons. People get out. People have gotten out through like long sentences. You know, just there's like they just amended it too. The United States Sentencing Commission, they just amended the guidelines for it, which are going to be going into effect in November. So that's going to open the door for a lot of people who've been denied. They're going to be able to refile. So that is a blessing right there.
Yes.
So they found me an attorney, and she filed a motion, but like I said, I helped build my case. While I was sitting there waiting, the judge sat on it for like 9 months. So while I was waiting, I just kept doing what I was doing, and I started my cousin's parole packet from prison. So he's a lifer in California State. So I started that, and that just became like my thing, you know, and it's my passion, and just helping others. And so like my goal, you know, is to eventually go to law school.
Sound like Bosco, remember? Got himself out of prison, same thing with the rule. That's inspiring, because, you know, people can sit there twiddling your thumbs. You know, you now have purpose. You went to work, and not only are you helping yourself, you're helping others around you. You're giving back. You
Right.
have compassion. You're asking for compassion, but in the meantime, while you're waiting for compassion, you have compassion on all the people around you, and you still want to
Yes.
help them.
Yes.
That's awesome to hear.
Yes.
So you're out. They grant your compassionate release. You're out. What happens? How do you feel? I know your family's elated, but tell us about that.
Well, it didn't happen right away.
Right.
So I got released to a halfway house.
Okay.
So they gave me a year of halfway house, and this is the interesting part.
Was that locally?
That was
Florida?
down here in San Diego,
Okay.
Ocean View. So
Oh,
they,
federal.
yes, the federal halfway house. So they gave me a year of halfway house time, which is not what at that time it wasn't easy to get, and people were fighting to get a year, and I had the most corrupt case manager there, and everybody hated him, and and I kept a record of everything that was happening. Every time I talked to them, I would have my questions down. I'd back what I needed to say with policy, so they couldn't say, "Oh no, you can't." Well, actually, I can because of this. So, he gave me a year of halfway house, and I didn't ask for it. That's the interesting part. I didn't ask him for a year. I asked him, how much halfway house time are you giving me? He's all, we're giving you a whole year because we're trying to get rid of you as soon as possible. And I felt that he said that because I think they knew I was keeping a record of what was going on there.
This lady's gonna get us in trouble. Let's get her out of here. Not because of compassion.
Right, no, exactly.
Get her out of here.
and so like my whole thing is accountability has to apply both ways. And
Yeah.
I would tell him that. And I'm like, you know, what you're doing is not okay. Like accountability applies both ways. It's just not just us. It applies to you guys too.
Can't be
Facts.
do as I say, not as I do.
Right. So at the halfway house, I was at the halfway house 5 months into it, maybe, no, 4 months into it. My oldest daughter got sick and she ended up in the hospital. And she had to get, she was really bad. Like, they said that she had to have back-to-back surgery. And at the time, it was during COVID, so they were not letting people no visitors. But, okay, so you're not allowed to visit your family, but you have to take public transportation to work. Okay, so that none of that made sense to me. None of that made sense to me, you know. So I decided while I was there, without sounding defiant, you know, but I told him, well, if you're not going to let me see my family, and I'm going to go home early, because I knew I was already applying for like home confinement, which I would have had to serve 6 months there and then 6 months at home.
Right.
So I was already getting ready to apply for it. And, you know, it's just, the system is so screwed up because they have, oh, well, we're only allowed to have this amount of people on home confinement. It's about money. It's always about money. It's about
Is it because tax dollars are flowing into the halfway house, so they want you there and not home confinement? When you say about money, why is it about money?
Because they get money for every person they have there, right? So they get money for everybody they have on home confinement. So they have to keep a balance. So I felt like he told me off the record, we're only allowed to have 60 something amount of people on home confinement. That's why people get denied, because they have a quota for everything. And I learned about that in federal prison. That's always about space, like beds. How many beds can we fill?
Yeah, you got to keep them full.
Yes. So my daughter got sick and she was in the hospital and she was going to have back-to-back surgery. My mom was like, I'm like, well, is she okay? And my mom's like, she's crying and she just wants you, you know, and she's my oldest daughter and she's been through a lot, you know, and I, as a mother, of course, I wanted to be there and I was devastated. So I called my attorney and I said, look, this is what's going on. What can we do? And she's like, well, you know, your judge is not very compassionate. And I go, well, it's not up to my judge. It's up to God. And that was what I kept telling her the whole time. I just was so confident in God, you know, getting me out early, you know, God using me for something. And I would always tell my attorney that. And she's like, well, I just appreciate your enthusiasm, you know, but I don't want you to like,
our hopes up. God is good, right. But the judge still has the final say.
That's what she would tell me. That's what she's telling me the whole time. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I hear you, but I know I'm going to get it.
He's got a bigger plan.
Yeah. And so she's like, well, the only thing we can do is like file a supplemental motion. It can't hurt. I'm like, well, he can't give me more time, so just file it. So she did. She filed it, and I went to they're called monitors at the halfway house, and the main guy, he was like really one of the ones that wasn't very nice. You know, he kind of was like, I guess, in a way, arrogant. You know, he was just very smug, and he did not, they don't like us there.
Right.
They don't like us. And not everybody's the same, and I just kept out of trouble the whole time.
Right.
But I did tell them that I wasn't going to work, but I wasn't there doing nothing. I was always cleaning. I was always doing something, you know, just staying busy as much as I could. And so I went to him, and I told him what was happening. I said, look, this is what's going on. My daughter's gonna have back-to-back surgery. Like, I need to be there, and if you guys don't let me go, I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna get an escape charge, and I'm asking for your help because this is my kid. I go, you see how I am here. I don't get in trouble. I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna get an escape charge, and I'm gonna end up back in prison, not because I did something wrong, only because I want to be with my kid. So he heard me out. He heard me out, and he wouldn't look at me. He wouldn't make eye contact with me because some guards just are like that, you know, they just don't want to look at you, but he did. At the end, he made eye contact with me, and he's like, I'm gonna reach out to, you know, this person, that person, and just don't leave tonight. Promise me you're not gonna leave tonight. We're gonna figure it out. I'll get you there.
Whatever you do, don't make us change.
Please don't make us change.
Right.
So I have a question real quick. I mean, so we know the miracle of the realization of God and what he's done in your life, and the favor he was granting you too, because he sees the transition in your life. But you did say the source of your trauma was that child sexual abuse. When did you come to face with that, and when did you overcome that? Was that all in the same night, or was there therapy, or was there some realization like along this process that this is the source of my trauma. I got to deal with it. Because, I mean, all the stuff, amazing. But we know one of the root causes was that, or the catalyst. I wouldn't say the root cause. The catalyst to this snowball effect in your life was the childhood sexual abuse. So when did you deal with that? How?
I dealt with that. It was a process. I think it was more like I did take a lot of programming in prison, but I want to say the best programming I got was from the ladies there, from the ladies that were genuinely walking with the Lord, and just talking to them, because I had a lot of questions that I just didn't know the answers to, and I didn't want to hear clinical terms. Like, I wanted to hear things that made
experiences.
Thank you. Yes. So there is this girl there, and I love her. I still talk to her. Her name is Victoria, and she knows who she is. And she's Native American, and she's from out there in Pine Ridge, in that area. And I would ask her, I'm like, why? I'm like, why? We would sit, and I watched people. Like, that's just what I did. Like, I would just observe everybody. I was really kind of kept to myself. And I would observe people, and I remember sitting down and I was talking to her. I'm like, why do they work out so hard? And they still seem like messed up. Like, why are they like eating so much? Why are all these women involved in relationships with each other? Like, from one to the next, like, what are they avoiding? What are they running from? And when she told me, it just made so much sense. She said, it's because it's facing themselves is too painful. So they are doing all this stuff because they cannot face themselves. It's just too painful. And when she told me that, I'm like, you know what? I need to face myself. I need to face it. I have to face it. And that meant... At
this point, were you already talking to people about your past and what happened?
I was in programming, yeah. Okay. I was in RDAP. But I just still kind of held back because I knew what I said, they were going to write reports about it. Because I didn't want what I wanted to get out, I didn't want it on paper. I just needed to get it out, but I didn't want it on a report. So there was some trusted therapists there that I had a few of them that I would, kind of get them in passing and talk to them, but not when I had the therapy session because I didn't want it on notes. I wanted to show that I was healing, but I didn't want it on paper because I
didn't want it to live forever.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Or come back and use that against
Thank
you.
you. That both.
Trying to get something for your kid or trying to get emotion.
You.
They're like, well, look at what happened here.
Yes.
I want to highlight on that real quick, though. For those of you out there going to relationship, drinking all on the weekends, got to go party to party, nightclub life, have to have that FOMO, fear of missing out. You always got to be doing something. Face yourself. Maybe you don't even realize you're running from yourself or running from your demons because you're just trying to self-medicate. And it doesn't always come in the form of heroin.
Right.
It doesn't come in the form of relationships. But if you're always, afraid to be alone in silence, or maybe you're on your phone 24/7 distracting yourself, let's face the music here, right?
Exactly.
So that's good advice because that one sentence that lady told you in prison was like, oh, light bulb moment, right?
she that woman's amazing. She and it's like, because I feel like people that are kind of solitary in a way, they do face themselves. They don't have a problem being alone. And that to me was like a real eye-opener because it made me think deeper. Like, okay, like, you know what? I don't need to fit in over there. I don't really like being over there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't agree with that. It just changed my whole view of everything. And I realized, what? I'm fine being by myself. Right. I am fine in my own skin. I know who I am in Christ Jesus.
Absolutely.
I don't need to fit in anywhere. I don't want to fit in a box. I don't.
Definitely. So.
And when you step back, you realize it's not that fun, anyways. What everyone else is doing.
It's not. It's really not.
It's exhausting. Like, oh my God, are y'all still up? Are we still partying? Oh my goodness.
Another party? Come on.
Another one.
I did that yesterday.
But going back to your question about, about my daughter and them letting me They did let me go see her, by the way.
In the hospital during COVID.
During COVID, and they told me that, we're gonna let you go. The main lady is like, we're gonna let you go, but you have to come back. You have to come back. And she's like, we're not supposed to do this, so like we're making an exception. And I went and I got to see my dad. They let me go 2 days in a row.
That's crazy because people were having dying grandparents.
They weren't even letting them go to the funeral, So I went to go see my daughter 2 days in a row. Thank God. And about a month later, I got up super early, and I was getting ready and I was putting my makeup on, and I just happened to look at my phone and I noticed I had an email from my attorney. And she's all, congratulations. I don't know if you've heard or not, but you got your compassionate release, and when I saw it, my heart didn't even skip a beat because I expected it. I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming, and I didn't even like freak out or nothing because I knew it was coming. And I just looked up. I'm like, thank you, Lord. I knew you were going to do this. Thank you for coming through. And then I kept getting ready. I just kept getting ready. I'm like,
all right, cool.
Right?
Thanks, God. I already knew her.
Good looking out, big man.
Right? I mean, I kept getting ready, and then I took my phone to the front desk, and I'm like, I think you guys need to read this email. And they're like scrambling, because I should have been released the day before. And this email came in the day before, but I didn't look at it until the next day.
They're a day late.
But they should have got the email.
They should have got it, and they didn't.
Right.
And so there was a whole fiasco in that place because the BOP was fighting to keep me, and probation knew that they had me. But because of the way the judge wrote the end part where I had to serve out the remainder of my sentence on home confinement, the BOP wanted me to be on home confinement through CoreCivic. And I didn't. CoreCivic. Yeah.
Explain that. What does that mean?
CoreCivic is a company. That's who runs the MCRP, the TTCRP for the women's
so just
halfway
much
house.
More restrictive, or
CoreCivic is you have the probation part, the prison part, and then CoreCivic runs the programming. They run the private part. The private,
That just would have made your life miserable.
Miserable.
Okay. Yes.
Miserable.
Yes.
So I did call probation and I explained the situation, and the lady, the director there, the probation's like, you can leave right now if you want to. Like you're free to go now. You can come and check here. And my attorney's like, I would wait. Don't just go just yet. Because you know how these people. You know how the system works. Yeah. You know how the system works. And
they
then
tell her to go nowhere.
So I started packing my stuff. I'm gonna get ready because I knew what was coming. And the director was like, oh, we're calling regional. We're having our attorneys. I guess they even made a phone call with Washington D.C. probation, the federal attorneys. CoreCivic attorney, all them, they had some kind of conversation, probably on Zoom, phone call, conference call, I don't know. But later on in the day, I'm just sitting on my bed and everything's packed and everybody's happy, and saying goodbye and everything. I had all my stuff, I had a lot of stuff. And the director comes in, she's like, Rojas, you're free to go. I'm like, thank you, bye. And I had already just had half of my stuff, just, slowly taking it up to the front, just waiting for the okay. I got the okay.
So how long did it take you? Because now you're out, you're home. You finally made it home. How long does it take you to hit the ground running?
My goodness.
And what year is this? 2020 or 2021?
At this point, we are in 2021.
So we've been out 2 years.
2 years.
Seems like you've done a lot since then.
Excuse me. Yes. So yes, hit the ground running. Yes. I had to go to, they gave me a week, actually. I don't even remember why, but probation's like, okay, yeah, come on this day. When I went, they slapped the ankle monitor on me. So during that week, I didn't go running wild or nothing. I wanted to be home, you know. So I was home. Eventually got the ankle monitor, and probation's like, you have a month to find a job. I'm like, well, I have to take care of my daughter, my special needs daughter. That's the whole reason why I was released from prison. He's like, well, we need you to get a job at least part-time. I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense.
Is that a requirement on probation?
Yeah, for probation and parole, they want you to have a job.
Yeah.
Yes.
Federal probation, parole, it
can
absolutely mandatory.
It can be a violation if you don't have a job in a certain amount of time. It's a violation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling the pressure, and I've been out of the workforce forever. You know, I mean, I was, you know, running the streets for a very long time, and I didn't really have like, I don't have a whole lot of work experience. But in prison, I had a good work rap sheet. I worked for a call center there, so I had that marketing, you know, marketing mentality, you know, sales and all that. So I knew I was going to have to sell myself somewhere, you know, sell myself to get the job, you know. So I started applying, but I had a friend who worked at Target, and she's from down here, but we did time over there in Florida, and she helped me get a job at Target in Encinitas. And they're like, okay, they're showing me they're like fast paced, everything's fast paced, and I'm not really used to moving that fast pace, you know. I can, but not when I'm learning something. Right. So they're trying to show me how to use that thing that they used as
scan
that. Yeah. Not the scanning. Well, I don't know, the thing that they carry around with them. Okay.
That for the key, for the tags. Is that it?
Something like yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes, it's like a little computer.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, no. So I have no experience with technology. I never really learned how to use a smartphone. Technology barriers, like I'm living
when
in.
You went in. I mean, it wasn't like the world wasn't controlled by smartphones.
No, it was starting to be.
Yeah.
So just that alone was so overwhelming. So I'm like, okay, how can I get out of using this thing? You know, so I start folding the clothes. And so I did that really well. I organize well. So they're like, you know what, we're just going to keep you, just focus on that. Like, just keep the store clean. So I'm like, I'm good. Like, I can be left alone. I don't have to deal with the customers. I can just fold clean, you know. So I was good with that. So federal probation requires you to have mandatory drug testing. So I'd have to call the testing line every night. And the only hours for testing are between 2 and 6. And it's in a place in Vista. So I'm in Encinitas. I don't have my driver's license because I haven't had it in about 20 years. It got taken away.
And for those you don't know, that's at least a 30, 40 minute. I'm sure by public transportation longer. Vista to Encinitas. Oh my
goodness. Well, thank God I had my daughter to drive, and she hated driving me around, bless her heart, but she stuck it out. We had a lot of times that we were bumping heads, but I thank God for her. So she would have to come, drive over there, pick me up, take me to testing, and drive back for like an hour left of work. Because you go to testing, and it's not like you can just go in. There's like a line of people there. You have to wait your turn. So it's not an in and out thing. So when that became a problem, because it was random and it was whenever, and you cannot refuse it. So my boss is like, look, like we can't keep accommodating this. You know, give us your 2 weeks notice and we'll hire you when you're off probation. So I'm just like, okay, well, it was a relief, but it was actually stressful too, because now what am I going to do? Yeah. And I told my probation officer, I said, look, I had to quit my job. He said, well, you should have told me. I'm like, well, yeah, this is a problem, you know, having to do mandatory drug testing. I'm like, so what am I supposed? He said, well, you need to find a job closer to your house within walking distance at least. So apply somewhere closer to home. You have 30 days. So when that 30-day mark came up, and I was applying everywhere, I'm telling you, everywhere. And I had a friend whose daughter was a supervisor at Walmart down the street from my house, and he was like, through her, he's like, oh yeah, they can't find your application. I mean, week after week after week, I'm like, what's going on with this application? Like, I submitted it, you know, and for whatever reason, it didn't work out that way. You know, for whatever reason, even though she was looking for my application or they were going to hire me, I never got called back from them. So when it got up to that 30-day, on that 30-day, I called my PO and I said, what other options do I have? Can I please go back to school? He's all, you know what? I'm going to allow it. I'm going to allow it. Yeah. So, like, that was just mind-boggling to me that I have to be allowed to go to school. Allowed to go to school. So when I was at the halfway house, I remember seeing a flyer in the corner down there of some, like, Rising Scholars program at one of the colleges in San Diego. And I kept the flyer, wanting to find one up here, hoping that there was going to be one up here. So when I called them.
So for those who don't know what Rising Scholars is.
Rising Scholars.
Tell us about Rising Scholars.
Rising Scholars is a network of community colleges in California that help it's for formerly incarcerated, system impacted individuals who are seeking higher education. And when I was in prison, I thought about a program like this because when I was in prison, I decided I wanted to go back to school. Right. but there were so many barriers at that institution. I couldn't. And the only thing they offered was a correspondence course. But then, of course, you would have to have a liaison out here. And then the way the mail system's set up there, you have deadlines to turn in assignments, and there was just so many barriers that I didn't want to go there, you know. So I knew it was going to be put on hold. So I called that number and I asked him, do you guys have anything up here in North County? He's like, oh yeah, well, we have Palomar College and Miracosta. They have a Rising Scholars program called Transitions. So then I called Palomar and they said theirs was only on the summer, the cohort they do on the summertime. So I called Miracosta and I got into Miracosta Transitions program, and I did that for about 1.5 years. And then I left Miracosta and went to Palomar full time. And it's just been such an amazing journey ever since.
Okay, well, tell us about the journey.
Okay.
We moved through. Woman, you've experienced so much trauma in your childhood. You got into drugs early. You know, over and over, you was addicted for many years. You went to prison. You know, one thing after another that could have, and that sometimes did break you down. You know, made it to where you probably thought it was impossible to overcome, but you did.
Right.
You know, so tell us about that part, that Post P Chronicle. You
know, it was told to me the other day that we're all born with a measure of faith. And the way it was explained to me was like, when you make a phone call, you expect somebody to answer. When you're calling a certain person, you expect them to answer. You expect the answering machine to come on or something, right? You expect something. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, that's a measure of faith. We're all born with it. It's in our DNA. That faith is in us, but we also have to have faith in ourselves. So I have so much faith in myself, and I believe so much in myself that I know there's nothing impossible that I can accomplish anything. I know that. I know that about myself.
Just time and putting in the work.
Exactly.
And get it done.
So higher education has really opened up a whole new world for me. And not only that, I have the best mentors, you know, that see my potential. Even when sometimes when I don't see it, they see it. And you know, you'd be good at this, you'd be good at that, and it just makes you think, you know. And I do have to mention also that I have one of the best sponsors in the world. Her name is Melissa, and she's somebody from my past. We were from the same area, and she's in ministry, and she is a Teen Challenge alumni, and she's just been a blessing. I'm actually going to go after this to go see her preach a sermon. Nice. So I ended up going to Palomar, and I do a lot outside of school. Like I'm involved with, I'm going to show you this right now.
Stay tuned. Watch this.
I'm involved with Initiate Justice Action, and we table at PAC meetings, and we get people being released to register to vote. So I'm a member of Initiate Justice Action. I'm also a FAM advocate, Families Against Mandatory Minimums. I've been to Washington, D.C. I've lobbied with them. I am going back, actually, in December for the anniversary of the First Step Act. I'm going to Washington, D.C. next month. I'm actually going to San Francisco, and this is all school related. So I just got hired in the president's office for Palomar College, working for Dr. Star Rivera-Lacey. Not only am I the first student that's been hired in her office, I'm the first formerly incarcerated student.
There we go.
So
that's so cool.
Right? Isn't that the best? God is so good.
Now it's funny when you're younger, on drugs, hopeless, you could have never imagined doing something like this.
I was thinking,
right?
No.
You probably wanted to die because
I did.
I can't beat this addiction. And look at you now.
You're right.
You're bringing hope. You're doing first things that formerly incarcerated have ever done. Let's talk about Initiate Justice, going to D.C. What do you want to accomplish on a big scale?
On a big scale, I would love to get some of these policies change that affect people that are serving long-term sentences. I would love to get just changing that on a macro level, like not just statewide, like nationwide. You know, people are serving these long sentences that don't need to be behind bars because they've been rehabilitated. So keeping them behind bars is not in the interest of justice. What my passion is post conviction relief. I do believe in accountability. but just not the kind of accountability that like throws people away like they're nothing. Because I believe that every life has value.
You can't throw them away, the key, lock them up and throw away the key, correct?
No, I mean, I feel like there are people that belong in prison, don't get me wrong, you know, but I also believe in healing. I also believe that people can change. Anybody can change. I mean, you guys have people on here all the time. You see, right? You see the change in people.
If I told somebody, you know, one of our former guests, Andy, what he did, they'd be like, Andy?
Never.
That guy's a teddy bear. He couldn't have done that, right? And I had a conversation the other day, you know, like, if someone from 5 years ago didn't see me today, you know, they probably have terrible things to say about me. But that's not who I am today. Right. And I'm proud of who I am today. And unfortunately, that person only remembers me from 5 years ago. You know, how much more do people change and evolve and grow in prison, right? 16-year-old Will that made the mistake is not the Will that he is today.
Right. Conscious decisions.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You, the drug addict, Vanessa, is not the Vanessa that's sitting here in front of us today, right? You guys have made decisions and change and therapy, completely different people. And I feel like we need to humanize these incarcerated, right?
Absolutely.
They're not just terrible criminals that, okay, here's their punishment. It's a universal punishment, and there's no exceptions.
Well, you know, it's just so punitive, and it's just like research is showing it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And when you lock people up and expect them to just like die in there, and what does that do actually? What does that do? Who are you punishing? Yeah. Right. You're just feeding into the problem. But people in there that have changed their lives and have healed, they can come out here and help other people heal.
I've never seen someone on the show that's not, I've never seen someone on the show that's not giving back. Almost everyone we've interviewed is doing, on some degree, of giving back, speaking, helping programs. Right. You know, and it's cool to hear that coming out of your mouth.
Definitely.
Well, there's a lot of healing. Yeah. When you give back, you're not just helping somebody; it helps you heal. You know, because I think it makes you feel human again. You know, because we beat ourselves up. If anybody beats themselves up the most, it's somebody behind bars. Somebody stuck behind bars will just beat themselves up the most.
There was something that you said early on that I don't want to leave without speaking on. You said that you've carried that guilt for a long time, you know, not speaking out when you was a child. And I just want to make sure that you no longer carry that guilt.
I don't. You know what?
Why is that important?
Why is that important? Because it's another form of prison. It's another form of prison, and you cannot move when you're carrying something with you. You know, you cannot. I don't even know how to explain it, like in a way where it can be understood. But
is a weight on your back. And how are you going to run a
you.
marathon with 100 pounds on your back?
Right. Yeah.
Release yourself from that weight.
Right.
It's not yours anymore. Right.
So part of my healing was being able to forgive myself. And that, when I was able to do that, like, you know, I went through all the programming and all that, I faced myself. But the moment I had that spiritual encounter with God, that was when I was able to forgive myself. When I knew he was real, everything made sense. The whole, like, you're forgiven. Like, don't worry. Just don't go back to that life.
Just don't go back.
Yeah.
And that's the key. To me, that is the key. Is, number one, I put God first in everything I do. Surrender. I'm grateful, even on the bad days. I'm grateful. I have to wake up grateful. And I always find what people call, like, the silver lining in every bad situation. There's always a flip side. So changing your mindset, for one, is huge in my life. Huge. And I'm always, every day, I'm always praying for, you know, for his will, for guidance, the strength to carry that will out. And I surrender, and I look for opportunities to serve. Wherever he puts me, I have to glorify him in whatever that looks like. So wherever I'm at, I have to put God first. I'm there for a reason.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, part of the gospel is grace, forgiveness, compassion, mercy, and then transformation comes, right? When you realize the love and the compassion and the mercy of God, it transforms you, and it has created you to be this better person. But yet we don't want to offer grace, forgiveness, compassion, mercy, because when you forgive someone, with the grace you show on someone that may have screwed up badly, that can transform them. When they know they're forgiven, when they know, hey, I know what you did, but let's move forward in grace and let's move forward and get you better. Imagine how that would transform somebody who has done such a heinous crime, and instead of you give them 20 years, they're never going to forgive themselves. You know, when guys that I mentor come to me, first thing I say, it's not about what you did, it's about what you do going forward.
Yes.
You know, so I'm not sitting there condemning them like, you
Right.
idiot, you're stupid.
Right.
They're coming to me because they
Right.
know they screwed up, right? They're coming to me because they already know they messed up. I don't got to
Right.
tell them.
Right.
Right.
Hey, Will, it's not about what you did, but what are we going to do going forward?
Right.
And that transforms somebody. And I think we need to, there should be a punishment, obviously.
Right.
You
Right.
committed a crime in the state of California or in the United States, you've committed an offense. There are punishments for the crime.
Definitely.
But when you also forgive and help and, you know, let's gently move them along, that's when the transformation is going to happen. You're right. I mean, Will, if you do 10 years or 20 years, is that extra 10 years going to make you a better person?
What you do
It's going to
in
make
that
you
10
worse.
years.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
It's true.
Yeah. But I'm saying, though, if you get a 10-year or 20-year sentence, is that 20 years going to make you better than doing 10?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So.
You know, on just a small other note, there's these prisons. I don't know if you've in like Norway.
Yes, the
you know,
Norwegian
they're
held
bringing
in.
that
Yes.
to California. They're doing that
transformative way.
in Donovan. Some of the people that actually go to the Gym Chula Vista work there. Won't say any names, but they have been handpicked. He was just sent to, I think, Sacramento. A lot of different prisons. They all go in there, and he's going to be directly, not so much running, but ahead of that program that they're bringing to
love
Donovan. And it's like they are humanizing prisoners, you know, where we call you by your first name, you call us by our name, we shake hands, we treat you like humans, because when you're sentenced, that is the punishment. Being taken away from your family is the punishment. Now that you're in
Exactly.
prison, that's not the punishment. Now majority of people in prison are coming home. So who do you want coming back into your
Right.
communities? Somebody who's just been sitting on their hands for 10, 15, 20
Surrounded
years,
by violence.
mad, surrounded by violence,
Angry,
you know,
bitter.
bitter, all. Or do
Yeah.
you want somebody who's been doing the work and been treated
Right.
like a human? Somebody who probably hasn't been treated like that their whole life.
Right.
You know, especially by authority figures, especially by law enforcement. And our law enforcement is saying, hey, Vanessa, how are you doing today? Hey, Vanessa, I hope you have a great day. You know, instead of, Riggs, F75, get over here.
You're just a
You know,
number.
just a number. You
Yeah.
know, just a number. So that is something moving the needle forward.
You just brought up a good point, and I don't know why I forgot to mention this, but one of my mentors is in prison right now. He's in Maine State Prison, Stephen Matthew Clark.
Right.
He does the Awakening Exchange, and they have the held in prison model there. So he has this like online platform that we meet like once a month, and he has like all these amazing interviews he does on there nationwide people showing up, people from other parts of the world. He interviewed the commissioner of Maine. He interviewed the warden. He interviewed a prosecutor. Like he's got like, it's really, really interesting to see this model being used in the U.S. And I think he was even part of getting a minimum wage
in prison.
in prison.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
they just
huge.
changed the policy. They
huge.
got minimum wage.
I was making 24 cents. You know, so
right?
Yeah, that's
24 cents
But
an hour.
why not set them up for success
Yes.
when they get
Absolutely.
out? You know, if you want to make your community safer, then help these people succeed out
coming
here.
back into your community.
Right. So, yeah, and I believe that too. I believe that, you know, we need to be healed while we're there in prison. But I also believe in prevention. You know, so it doesn't just start, people don't just decide to make a bad choice one day. Something happened to them in the
Definitely.
past.
Childhood trauma.
Exactly. Something, everybody that I know in prison, something happened to them.
Every single person. And that's why with Post P Chronicles, why we like to go on the journey of childhood, because that decision that sent you to prison, it didn't start there.
Right.
You know, so what caused you to have that mindset that this is okay, so that people can humanize people who have been incarcerated, like, hey, I'm more than just this worst decision. This is what I went through. Yes, I committed crime. Yes, I need to go serve my time, but I'm still human. I'm still
Right.
flawed. I'm still hurt. You know, so now help me heal.
And part of that healing also has to be with the people that are running the prisons.
Yes.
Because they're some of them are worse than the prisoners.
Oh yeah, here at East Coast is bad.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Like, you know, how do you expect people to heal when you have criminals in charge of them? Criminals abusing them, abusing their authority.
Definitely.
I mean, it's just, they need to get like some kind of training too, you know.
And they will be, because of what you're doing, because of Initiate Justice Action, because of the Rising Scholars programs at Palomar I was
DC.
also a rising scholar, you know, at Southwestern.
Oh, you are?
I was.
Oh, you were?
School wasn't my path, but I was a rising scholars. So I know that if you continue to do it, and everyone who is advocating, continue to do what we're doing, change is coming.
I definitely believe that.
And before we wrap up, I just want to say your life is nothing short of a miracle.
Thank you.
You here today is a miracle.
Thank you.
And shows God's grace and goodness in your life. You know, a lot of people that are hooked on heroin, from meth at 10, heroin at 13, they don't ever recover.
Right.
Or they don't live to the age you're at, right? You know, they're dying in their 20s. No. So the fact that you're here, the amazing big things you're doing, and that you're clean, you're sober, and you're giving back, it's just a miracle to see.
Miracle.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's all by God's grace. And
Absolutely.
He has a plan. And sometimes I have a plan, but my plan isn't always in alignment with His plan. That's why I have to surrender every day.
Definitely.
And they say people's most productive years in their lives is between 50 and 60. So 51, you're just hitting your stride.
Watch
you're
out
just
now.
starting.
Not
Yeah.
55.
Okay, not 55.
Not 55, all right? Not
I'm
55.
adding more age. I don't know why I made myself older than what I was.
Because you're wiser beyond your years.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Vanessa, we appreciate you coming out.
Well, thank you
once
for having
again,
me.
Initiate Justice Action, Palomar.
Rising Scholars.
Rising Scholars.
How can people get a hold of you?
Can get a hold of me. I'm going to have my business card soon, but I am at Palomar College, Rising Scholars in San Marcos, California. I also have Facebook. I also have Instagram, and I also have LinkedIn.
Well, tell them.
LinkedIn.
What's your Instagram? What's your LinkedIn? What's your
Vanessa
Facebook?
Rojas on Facebook. LinkedIn, I believe it's Venus Rojas. I'm sorry, no, take that back. Instagram, I think it's Venus Rojas. LinkedIn, it's Vanessa Rojas.
All right.
And I do want to thank you guys and just everybody who's supporting me, everybody who supports what we do and what we stand for. And I look forward to seeing how God's going to use me.
Me too.
Absolutely. Amen.
Amen. So, it's been another great episode. I'm Will.
And I'm Steven.
And this is the Post P Chronicles.
Chronicles. That was good.
That was